hormone disruption, endocrine disruptions in our environment that are so pervasive and everywhere, just ubiquitous in every aspect of our life. Every single day, everything we do, we're being bombarded by chemicals that are causing hormone disruption in everybody, leading to, especially in the youth today, but across the board, from the youth to adults to the elderly, for many people, this gender dysphoria, this confusion, this transgender issue. It's a physical and mental issue. Okay? Now, that may sound rude or hard to hear for some people, okay? But it is the truth. Now, I just got back from spending 6 days, almost a week, at Disney World, right? Where I saw thousands and thousands of people. And one thing I can comfortably say is that breastfeeding is a very inclusive term. There's no need to jump to chest feeding, because I saw no shortage of man boobs all over the place. And I'm not being insensitive. This is a big, big issue. And it isn't just because people are overeating and an accumulation of adipose tissue and fat. No, this is breast tissue growing in men, all right, that can lead to breast cancer in men. And it comes down to the chemicals in our environment. Now, I'm not going to dive through all the data. I'm going to point you guys to resources for those that are interested to go look further into this. Okay? Maybe we'll take some time to watch some things, but just to kind of tiptoe into endocrine disruption leading to massive hormone imbalance, which would lead to this diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which leads to transgender. Does that mean that transgender people shouldn't have rights? No, absolutely not. They should be treated as equals as everybody else. But should this agenda be leveraged as a way to destroy humanity? Absolutely not. But that's exactly what's happening. Okay? And none of this is by accident. Okay? You really have to look at the history of eugenics, what the goals are with eugenics, and especially depopulation. Okay? Or controlling population growth. Population growth is a huge threat to the eugenicists and their views of the future and what's important, and their obsession with control. So I don't even know where to start, but let's just stay on the topic of endocrine disruptors and men and the disappearance of the man. It's pretty sad. So I'll bring this over here. All right. Gynecomastia, right? Breast enlargement in boys or men due to increase in breast tissue. This is a result of an imbalance between hormones, testosterone and estrogen, right? Our androgens and our estrogens. So why? Why is this happening, and why so much? Environmental endocrine disruptors, the effects on the human male reproductive system. And there are many, right? Testicular cancers, breast cancers, sperm decline, you name it. We're experiencing it all. But it doesn't just affect the men, it affects the women too. And there's a million different things we can look at. We can look at pesticides. We know they're endocrine disruptors. We know that DDT, which you can find in this article, DDT is a massive endocrine disruptor. We know that glyphosate is a massive endocrine disruptor. I've done an entire video about fluoride and what a massive endocrine disruptor it is, how it damages the hypothalamus and hormone production and causes thyroid issues. You go pituitary, hypothalamus, thyroid, adrenals, and all of this communication system in the endocrine system of signaling back and forth that is applicable to gender, which have its place, boys and girls. Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. They are different. Biologically, they are different. Now, this confusion, this gender dysphoria, this transgender, yes, it's happening, and it's real, and the experience of the individual that is confused or feels like, I was born a boy, but I feel like a girl, or I actually feel like a man, but I feel like I want to express myself as a female, right? And wear a dress and paint my nails, but I'm attracted to women, and I want to do this, that, and the other. That's each individual's expression epigenetically, and it's going to be unique to them based on the environmental exposures that they've had throughout their life, okay? And it's not just gender dysphoria, okay? We look at all the epidemics that are happening right now. Gender dysphoria, autism, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes. All of these issues that we're seeing are the individual's epigenetic expression of one overreaching issue. The fact that we're being poisoned by tens of thousands of chemicals every single day of our lives. In our water, in our food, in our air, on our clothes, on our makeups, on our soaps, on our shampoos, everything. Everything that science, mainly chemical companies, has brought into our world, we just went with it, and now we're starting to see and experience the effects. Okay, and gender dysphoria is one of the effects, just like autism is one of the effects, just like everything. All of the diagnoses that we experience are an expression, an individual expression that's unique to that person on the toxicity of their life and the nutritional deficiencies of their life, and the genetics passed down to them because of the parents' exposures to different things and the compounding of that generation to generation to generation. Okay? Oh man, so there's so much. I'm just going to point you to information you can go look at yourself. We're already 10 minutes in. So why not look at this as it really is, as a issue, right? People want to say, well, I am who I am and you just need to accept it. You're right. You are who you are because of all of these factors, and we do accept you. We do need to accept this. But we also need to address the root cause so that less people are suffering from depression, anxiety, ADHD, gender dysphoria, autism, so on and so forth. Because this is a diagnosis in the DSM-5. This is a mental, what do they call it, disorder? What is gender dysphoria? Let's learn about it. The term transgender refers to a person whose sex that is assigned at birth. For example, the sex assigned by the physician at birth, usually based on your external genitalia, does not match the gender identity, for example, one's psychological sense of their gender, right? Which is going to come back to your hormone production and the signaling, and the balance that used to be there is now imbalanced, okay? Which will create this dysphoria. Though gender dysphoria often begins in childhood, some people may not experience it until after puberty or much later. It affects anybody at any time differently. Okay, people who are transgender may pursue multiple domains of gender affirmation, including social affirmations, like changing one's name or pronouns, legal affirmations, changing their gender markers on one government issue document. So for example, if you're a male, you might say, no, I'm a female, I identify as a female. Or even going as far as surgical affirmations, doing a vaginoplasty or facial feminization surgery, breast augmentation, or removal of masculine chest reconstruction, so on and so forth. Actually physically changing their body now that technology has these advances going that far. So the big issue right now is that the government is trying to bypass parental consent and say that a child can now choose what sex to be, whenever they want as a minor. The problem with that is they may actually, as a boy, with all these endocrine disruptors, go, I kind of feel like a girl and I have attraction towards men and da-da-da-da, so I'm going to go ahead and go through with this. But at puberty may have found a balance in their hormones and then later go, you know what, I kind of feel like a man. I actually am really attracted to that girl and I'm going to go on and procreate and have a family and blah, blah, blah. Or they may not. But that's something that you don't want to rush into, a decision you don't want to rush into until you have gone through puberty and had kind of a balance and have made those decisions and also addressed your environment and made sure that there is balance in your hormones based on your day-to-day decisions before making such a big decision, okay? And, we could go down this road forever, but you have to have a key understanding that gender matters, okay? A boy is a boy and a girl is a girl, but gender identity has now fallen on a spectrum, just like autism falls on a spectrum, because of these massive imbalances in our natural hormones. So here's a great article from the Spectrum from September 14th of 2020. It says the largest study to date confirms a big overlap between autism and gender diversity. Okay, so there's a lot of key aspects that go into the autism epidemic that overlap into gender dysphoria, okay, as well as ADHD, as well as depression, as well as anxiety. Again, we try to look at each diagnosis as one problem. You have depression, you need this drug. You have anxiety, you need this drug. You have ADHD, you need these drugs. You have autism, that's genetic, which obviously it's not just genetic, it's environmental, guys. And you have gender dysphoria, which they're not going to drug you for, but you could start trying to balance your hormones with diet and see if you can find some stability and less confusion. Okay, I'm not trying to be insensitive to anybody in any way here. We need to just look at the reality of what this is. So it says people who do not identify with the sex they were assigned to at birth are 3 to 6 times as likely to be autistic as I don't know how to pronounce it, cisgender people, which is just somebody that I'm a boy, I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I'm a girl. Cisgender people, according to the largest study yet to examine the connection. Gender diverse people are also more likely to report autism traits and to suspect they have undiagnosed autism. Researchers often use gender diverse as an umbrella term to describe people whose gender identities, such as transgender, non-binary, or genderqueer, differ from the sex they were assigned to at birth. Cisgender, or cis, refers to people whose gender identity and assigned sex match. The results come from an analysis of 5 unrelated databases that all include information about autism, mental health, and gender. All these findings across different datasets tend to tell a similar story. Autistic people are more likely than neurotypical people to be gender diverse. Several studies show, and gender diverse people are more likely to have autism than are cisgender or cisgender people. But most previous studies have probed the relationship among people who sought gender-related medical care, often for gender dysphoria, a condition in which the mismatch between gender identity and sex assigned at birth caused significant distress. And this is a huge mental health burden for somebody to battle that internally, okay? Especially with societal pressures. It's a big deal. The cohort doesn't represent the full scope of gender diverse people. It's so vital to understand this question outside of the clinical context. A more naturalistic study with this many participants outside of a clinical context really does provide a lot of support for the overlap. So gender and autism. The 5 data sets together include 641,860 people. Mostly adults, 30,892 have autism and 3,770 identified as gender diverse. The majority of the data from about 514,000 people came from an online survey conducted as part of a 2017 British television documentary about autism. So it shows cisgender males, cisgender females, and gender diverse. This light blue is gender diverse. Okay, so autism spectrum quotient, autistic, empathy, autistic, pattern recognition. Anyway, you can go through and read this, and I highly recommend that you do. Okay. 3 of the other data sets also used online questionnaires. The 5th came from a population study that collected information through primary care providers and included an optional online survey about autism traits. All of the studies included a question about autism diagnosis and asked for supplementary information such as the participant's age at diagnosis. The survey also gave different options for sex and gender. One included the term non-binary and other, for example, and another used variations on sentences such as, at birth I was registered as female, but I'm a male, type of thing. About 30,000 or 5% of the cisgender people in the study have autism. The researchers found whereas 895 or 24% of the gender diverse people do. So only 5% of those having kind of that gender dysphoria Okay. Only 5% of the cisgender group had autism, whereas of the gender diverse group, 24% had autism. And because this is such a wide spectrum, it could be, those numbers could be way off. So gender diverse people also report on average more traits associated with autism, such as sensory difficulties, pattern recognition skills, and lower rates of empathy, or accurately understanding and responding to another person's emotional state. And if they are 5 times as likely to suspect that they have undiagnosed autism as the cis people are, based on one data set of 1,800 people whose survey included this question. These findings were published in Nature Communications in August, and you can go through and look at these graphs. Okay. The researchers also explored the relationship between gender identity and 6 mental health conditions, including schizophrenia, depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Many of these conditions co-occur with autism, and it has been unclear whether autism's association with gender diversity is unique among these conditions. Gender diverse people have higher rates of all 6 conditions than the cisgender people do. So, obviously there's a very strong correlation between mental health disorders like autism, schizophrenia, depression, ADHD, anxiety, and things like that, and gender dysphoria, which shows that there is a massive imbalance in the body of hormones, of neurotransmitters, you name it. Now, where does this start? It starts in our environment, and that includes everything. I've already said pesticides, fluoride, vaccines are a huge, huge issue, and it goes on and on and on. Chemicals in our food, chemicals in the air, chemicals in the water. So I'm going to just point to some really good documentaries that I want you to go watch. This one's in the Fear vs. Freedom channel. If you want to, in the playlists, I have a playlist called Toxins Today. And this is a really good one. It's an hour and a half long. It's called Chemicals in the Environment, Dehumanizing Humanity. And this one really dives into so much of the different chemicals, the glyphosates, the atrazines, the preservatives, everything, the laundry detergents, the soaps, the topicals, all of it. Really great documentary. Go find it. Chemicals in the Environment, Dehumanizing Humanity. I've thought of different ways. How do I want to bring this to Instagram? And I really can't because it's too long. And if I speed it up, it's too hard to understand. So you're really going to want to go watch it in its proper speed and get a good idea of the chemicals that are affecting our hormones and our mental health. Okay? And here's another one that really dives into the consequences of certain pesticides, like atrazine. If you're not familiar with Dr. Tyrone Hayes, brilliant researcher. In fact, this person has his own unique gender expression. Okay, he doesn't really dive into his gender identity, but he's a boy, he's a man, he wears earrings, he wears dresses. That's his own gender expression. That's great. That's who he is. He exposes a lot of the massive hormonal issues that contribute to gender dysphoria and to the transgender issue. Now, just because I'm talking about this and saying that there are reasons people become transgender, it doesn't mean I'm transphobic, okay? Now, society wants to say, oh, you're transphobic because you're talking about this. You're saying it's a mental illness. No, I'm saying that there are root causes that lead toward gender dysphoria or this kind of confusion. Just like there are reasons that lead to depression. Just like there's a reason that led to my son's epilepsy, okay? Just because I'm saying my son has epilepsy because he got injected with neurotoxins, that doesn't mean I'm epileptic discriminating person, right? I hate the word retarded because it's been used as an insult toward people forever. Okay, but is my son mentally retarded? Yep, he is. Does that make me discriminatory toward him? No. I support and love that kid more than anything. Right? So it's okay to talk about what could be leading to these issues, and they are issues. Okay? But just because you are that person doesn't mean that you're not a good person, right? My son's an epileptic. He's a wonderful person, and I support him 100%. Do I focus on our lifestyle to try to make his life as good as possible? You bet I do. So just because somebody is suffering, and the key word there, you do suffer from gender dysphoria. It's a suffering. There's a huge mental anguish there because they are not even sure how they feel or what they're doing. And some people they're certain. I was born a boy. I know I'm a girl, okay? And that's a great decision to make as an adult. Once your bodies have gone through all the proper hormonal changes that it will go through, and depending on your chemical exposures along the way, and toxin exposures, and nutrient deficiencies, and genetic expressions along the way, you may be transgender. And that's okay, but we can't just throw away looking at the root cause. We need to look at the root cause. In fact, let's just take the 6 minutes to watch this little excerpt from Nature about atrazine so you can get a good idea. If you have, most people have probably seen this, but a lot of people haven't. I've shared this with people for years, and most people hadn't seen it. So let me play this, and then we'll jump back into what I'm talking about. Let me get out of the way also.
If an entire class of animals that's been around for millions and millions of years is rapidly declining and potentially going extinct, we really need to think about what we've done and if our advances will eventually harm us all. I really like the science. I like solving the puzzle. I like the CSI. I also like frogs, and so I also feel a real drive to help understand how pesticides and other chemicals are affecting amphibian populations.
Hayes and his students have been looking for clues in the Salinas Valley.
50% of the U.S.'s agricultural products come out of California. Something like 85% of the country's lettuce comes out of Salinas, 90% of the almonds. It's called the salad bowl of America. California uses more pesticides than any other state. The second biggest is Florida. Things like chlorpicrin is used out here on the strawberries. Chlorpicrin is a nerve gas. These are guys who are applying it, they're out there picking it. Methyl bromide is a fumigant, something you pump into the soil. What are some of the other big ones, you guys?
Diazonol.
Some atrazine. This will all end up in the river that we're working in here. It might look like we're out in a bush somewhere, but 15 feet on either side, we're surrounded by agriculture, and the runoff ends up in this river. All of the algae is a result of all the nutrients, because a lot of fertilizers are used in agriculture. And once those fertilizers get into the water, you get these blooms of algae. I wouldn't say it's a sign of a healthy river. This is a site where we typically find compromised immune systems, tadpoles that aren't able to fight off disease. Our data so far suggests that the mixture of pesticides causes an increase in stress hormones, and those stress hormones cause immunosuppression, which leads to the inability to respond to any kind of disease pathogen.
While investigating chemical runoff, Hayes stumbled on another culprit.
We started going to Salinas River looking for the native red-legged frog, and it turns out that it has been completely replaced on the river by bullfrogs. This invasive bullfrog itself is one of the causes for decline in many of these areas. And so we're studying them in areas where they're not doing well to try to understand what may be driving some of the native species to extinction.
Entrepreneurs transported bullfrogs from the East Coast, hoping to farm them for food. Instead, they unleashed a carnivore that has decimated California's native frogs. It seems that even the tough bullfrog isn't doing so well with the toxins in this water. Back at Berkeley, Hayes is studying another non-native. African clawed frogs were once used in human pregnancy tests, but when they became obsolete, many were discarded. These were collected from streams around California.
We're removing an invasive frog, and we're studying them to try to understand declining amphibians.
Hayes is testing the effects of chemicals like atrazine, a common herbicide.
We have a whole family of animals where we've eliminated the female chromosome.
Specimen 01.
These animals that we know are genetic males have been exposed to atrazine for their entire life. And many of these genetic males now are turning into females. You can see he's got eggs that kind of look like they're in a sac. These are actually yolked eggs ready to be laid. What's happening is you're skewing sex ratios. You can get genetic bottlenecking, which can cause crashes. And quite frankly, if you're a genetic male, it'd be nice if you're developed as a genetic male. And now we have a chemical very common in the environment that's effectively sex reversing animals. I want to show you something pretty amazing, scientifically speaking. The one that's sort of remarkable is this pair. These are both males. The one on the bottom, acting as the female, we affectionately refer to as Darnell. He's a genetic male that not only acts like a female, he lays eggs like a female. She has been exposed to atrazine all of her life. I don't even really know how to reference it. This is Darnell's third clutch. So Darnell has sons and daughters that we've grown up. You can see eggs in the bottom. This is actually her second clutch for today. She has been copulating for getting close to 24 hours now. This is probably one of the most remarkable things I've seen in my work. But I personally have mixed emotions. I'm very excited about the science and trying to understand the mechanism. But on the other hand, I am worried. This is the most common contaminant in ground and surface water and drinking water. And the level of atrazine that it took to make this male turn into a female is 3 times less than what's allowed in our drinking water. I really think that the global amphibian decline is telling us something about human health.
The toxins in our waters are reaching well beyond frogs. Reproductive abnormalities have been reported in everything from alligators to polar bears to humans.
It's not just a problem with frogs we should be concerned about. The water that's causing their problems is the same water that we're drinking and using to water our crops.
Frog or human, we all breathe the same air and drink the same water. For their sake and ours, experts agree we have to take action, and there's no time to lose.
Pretty interesting, right? So, this is old news, right? Here's another one you can find. This one's on Daily Motion. It's called "The Male Population is Disappearing." And it is. And it all comes down to the chemicals that we've been exposed to every day from before conception. These chemicals are in the cord blood. Let me go back. Okay. This one is a TEDx talk that that researcher, Dr. Tyrone Hayes, actually did. And he talks about his research, what he's found, not just the consequences of, gender bending. I don't know how else to say that. The gender effects of the pesticides and the many other chemicals that we're exposed to, but the cancers as well, which mainly affect our sex organs, especially mammary glands and things like that. What about soy, right? So there's so many things. I mean, in this one they talk, not this one, the environmental endocrine disruptors, effects on the human male. This one talks about plastics, right? Phthalates, the BPAs, DDT, glyphosate, you name it. They're all disrupting our hormone production, as well as our crappy diet, our overconsumption of simple refined sugars and carbs, and there's a million different factors here. But we can correct this and go back. Now that's it. Anyway, you feel like you have to tiptoe around everything, and I'm just not going to do it. So let me continue on. There's many studies. You can find a lot of studies on the co-occurrence of gender dysphoria and autism spectrum disorder. Again, just pointing to the fact that there's so many environmental factors that lead us down this road. And why? Why, scientifically speaking, why isn't this a big deal? Why isn't this talked about more, brought to people's attention? Instead, why is it that they're just using this transgender agenda and shoving it in your face and shoving legislation down your throat and pointing the finger at you that you're transphobic no matter what you say, you're a transphobe or you're racist or you're anything else, right? They're just any agenda they can to just point the finger at you and control everything you think, say, or do. Well, again, it comes back to eugenics. And if you haven't seen James Corbett's recent video called How Can a Global Conspiracy Even Work? Man, he does a great job of diving into how this all came to be and the agendas around preventing population growth. And there are so many great resources if you click into this and go into his show notes that you can find information about publicly discussed strategies around preventing overpopulation, the depopulation agenda. Yes, vaccines are a part of it. Yes, this chemical onslaught is a part of it. And it's basically creating, number one, a destruction of the family, but gender roles. And, if you're destroying your own biological genetic ability to procreate, this helps prevent population overgrowth. And so they want to keep this moving forward. And they will, and they do. So there's so many videos that I'm going to show you here that are sourced in these show notes on how can a global conspiracy even work. But let's look at why are we allowing this to continue happening? Why aren't we trying to say, hey, we know that all of these chemicals are destroying our biological functions and our physiology and our hormones, and everyone's being affected to a different degree. Why aren't we doing anything about it? Well, that ties into the depopulation agenda. So what does Prince Philip have to say about it? Let's hear.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
Well, it could be on a spectrum from mass sterilisation to greater availability of contraception. I don't know what your views are as to what can be done about it.
Well, I think it might be described as voluntary family limitation.
What do you see?
Oh, no. We would never do mass sterilization. It's going to be voluntary family limitation. Yeah, right. They're absolutely mass sterilizing the world. They've done it in vaccines in Africa. They were exposed in using vaccines to sterilize women in Africa. The vaccinations all can have effects to our sex organs and are causing infertility. Infertility is one of the biggest issues these days. Sperm count is nowhere near what it used to be, and how many people just can't get pregnant. It comes down to our environment and what they're purposely doing to our environment to bring the world population down. Here's another one from David Rockefeller's address to the United Nations in 1994. And one of the things he says is we've done too good of a job, basically, of reducing infant mortality, and people are living longer, and this is a huge problem, and we need to address this problem. And so you can go look this one up and watch it. Let me see if maybe we'll just play a little bit here.
Let me illustrate. Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. This is a development which, as individuals, we can only applaud. However, the result of these positive measures is a world population that has risen during the same short period of time geometrically to almost 6 billion people and could easily exceed 8 billion by the year 2020. The negative...
We're right on track, right? What are they going to do to stop us? Oh, well, let's get that infant mortality rate climbing back up. Let's start vaccinating them on the day they're born with neurotoxins, right? It's happening. People are dying. Kids are dying like crazy. One of the things we saw at the beginning of the lockdowns, when kids weren't getting in to get their annual shots at 2, 4, and 6 months, or their routine vaccinations, is the infant mortality rate dropped 30%. What a coincidence, right? So they have a million different ways to attack us, the general population of the world, with chemicals, with vaccines, with medications, with social programs, and manipulation to get us to turn against each other. Here's another one where David Attenborough, who commonly narrates many different nature shows and things like that, again, it's just, I mean, he really dives into it. He's like, there's too many people, and we need to start, reducing the number of kids people can have and forcing birth control on people. You can go watch this one. This is Sir David Attenborough on overpopulation. And anyway, there's so many of them. You can find them again on this James Corbett show, How Can a Global Conspiracy Work? This is a recent one from just a couple weeks ago. And the show notes source them all. And I highly suggest you watch them all. What's their end game? It's depopulation. It always has been. Bill Gates talks about it over and over and over again, and does all these presentations on spinning it and making it sound like such a wonderful thing to just not have so many kids. And you see it in this epidemic, right? In Canada, there's posters that say, your child, do what's right for your child and only have one kid, because having more is mean. Like the dumbest stuff. If you go to Brighteon or London Real's website and watch some of David Icke's interviews that have been done with Brian Rose, they're fantastic. I mean, he's been on so many different platforms, but listen to him discuss the transgender agenda. Okay, he'll defend the people. The people are great. There's nothing wrong with the people. They're just experiencing their own expression of what's happened in their life. Okay? It's the agenda. It's what's behind the agenda that you have to pay attention to. I'm not going to play it. I don't want to get deleted, but you guys can go look it up. The information's there. Go look it up. You want some different perspective from some of the challenges that people face, listen to some of the interviews that he's done, that Brian Rose has done with transgender people, and some of the challenges they face. It's an uphill battle. It's a challenge. They're discriminated against, just like many other factions in society are discriminated against. And they deserve their rights, but we don't push this agenda. We also need to be addressing the root cause of their suffering, because they're suffering. And it goes beyond just social acceptance. It goes beyond. It's a big deal. So anyway, I'm just going to share my feelings. You can cancel me if you want to cancel me. I'm not saying people are bad, sick, and wrong. If I have great friends that are gender confused, that are in the LGBTQ community. That's great. Great people. Okay? But there is systemic issues going on that are contributing to the collapse of gender in general and humanity and who we are and what we are and procreation and family. And you gotta understand the different ways we're being attacked and how to avoid these issues to get the most out of your life. Now, many of us we are where we're at, and we're trying to make it a better future for everyone, and that's what we need to do. But when we have kids that are experiencing this kind of confusion and mental health issue, whether it's anxiety, depression, ADHD, autism, or gender dysphoria, we should be looking at why. We should be looking at why is this such an issue today when it wasn't 30, 40 years ago. Were there people like this then? Yes. But was it so common? No. Do we see more suffering today than we saw then? Yes. Why? Because we're being poisoned now more than ever. And at every angle you can imagine. And that's all I'm trying to bring awareness to. And, when I started with that Seinfeld clip, it was just to point out that there is a hormonal problem today, okay? And it needs to be addressed. And it was something that could be laughed at, on a Seinfeld episode, but there is a massive issue with endocrine disruption and developmental disorders that are happening because of it. And we need to get to the root cause, and we need to fix it. We need to stop poisoning ourselves. We need to stop allowing ourselves to be poisoned by the industry and get so caught up in the politics that we're literally defending these chemical companies and pharmaceutical companies because we don't want to be called a science denier when it's science that's pointing to them as the problem. Okay? So if I offended you, I'm sorry. But everything that I've ever shared, I've done so out of love and concern for humanity as a whole, for each individual person. Okay? If you are a girl trapped in a boy's body, or vice versa, or you identify as a unicorn or whatever, I'm sorry you're having that internal struggle and that you're facing the social pressures that come with it. And there's a root cause. And we can correct that, not just for you, but for future generations. But it's up to all of us to do it. We've got to come together in love and understanding, and with a desire to honor each other, nature, our environment, and be better all around. All right, guys. Anyway, love you. Bye.